Reasons it looks like the people who currently run the government are about to be repudiated in a historic way next Tuesday is that they have completely opened our southern border, over which more than 5 million foreign nationals have come in and broken our laws by doing it.
The Democrats own it. They own it, and they will pay for it on Election Day.
And the only way to fix Illinois is to fire J.B. Pritzker and get the problem out by the roots.
It should be pretty clear by now what this election is all about. Every one of their candidates is a radical.
I've got a new name for Chicago. I'm going to call it Pritzkerville, because every one of Governor Pritzker's extreme policies are destroying the city.
I know they want us to think it is a battle between left and right, but this is truly a battle between those who want to save America and those who want to destroy her. Who is ready to rise up and go out there and win this war to save America? Let me hear you.
All right, folks, we are live in Studio Macomb. It is Election Day, and I am very excited to introduce my guests with me today. We've got Tom Schmidt. Tom, I'm going to let you give your own introduction.
Very good. Oh, well, I did that at my wedding, so it'll work here too, I suppose. Well, good to be with you, obviously. I appreciate the opportunity. I've been a little bit off the radar screen here of late, and your invite brings me back to something that I have natural interest in, so I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, thanks for being here.
You bet.
And Joe, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'd be happy to. Josiah Chatterton, just involved in politics recently, but getting very into it, and I'm very excited for the red wave this year. I am confident in our ability to turn some things around in 2022 midterms.
And Josiah has claimed a title in the Republican Party. He's been elected as a precinct committeeman in Fulton County, right?
That's correct.
And how your guys' committee was down for a few years, but you guys are back online now, correct?
Yes, it was down for, I think, 10 years at least. It was down for a while. There was just no committee. There was a lot of drama with how it went down, but it is back online now. John Spangler is the chairman currently, got reelected at our most recent committee elections. And, you know, the committee's moving well. There's a lot of active members, and I think its future is looking bright.
Yeah, and I can attest that. I joined you at their Lincoln Day dinner. Is that what that was in Fulton County?
Mm-hmm.
And it was an awesome turnout. So the live stream today, we're going to try to cover everything that's going on as the day goes on. I've got a live stream of the news that's coming in. And if anything interesting happens, we're going to go ahead and hop on that and talk about it. As results roll in later, things will be a little more intense. We're going to have a few more people here in studio. But to start the evening off, what I really want to look at as a group is some of the polling going into this weekend. So this is the poll nationally, the Real Clear Politics average on whether we are headed in the right direction or the wrong direction. And as you guys can see, it has been peaking here in 2022 that we are headed towards the wrong direction. So Tom, you've been around for a lot more cycles than I have and Joe has. What should we expect? What can you compare this to in the past? What are we looking at here going into the day?
Well, I hadn't thought about it in that framework, but you're right. I am old enough to remember more perhaps than you gentlemen. And what comes to mind as you ask that question is the very first presidential election I voted in was for when President Carter was running for his second term against President Reagan. And that was the time when that phraseology really was crystallized, that do you feel like you're better off than you were 4 years ago? And since then, this upcoming today's election is very, very familiar to me in that regard. I think enough things have happened in the last just 2 years, breathtakingly short amount of time, to cause people to stop and actually ask a 4-year question. Am I better off than I was 4 years ago? Obviously not. I'm not even better off than I was 2 years ago, which is I'm making the point that in a short period of time, significant things have happened that has moved us dramatically in the wrong direction. And I'm not talking just about 1 or 2 issues. I'm talking about comprehensively. If it were a highway, this would not be a gravel road of a wrong direction. This is a 5-line super expressway of the wrong direction.
Crime, inflation, taxes, We've got a culture war that's hard to avoid. We've got a hot war in Eastern Europe for the first time in a long time. There's Afghanistan. What else can you guys name that's at the top of the head? And what do you think is going to be the top issue this cycle as voters go to the poll? Because I've heard crime's going to be the top issue. I've heard inflation. I've heard the economy. But what do you really think is going to hit home with people the most?
My gut reaction to that is that I try and pay attention to what was even President Nixon phrased at the quiet majority, the silent majority. And as I went door to door over the last month, what was disturbing to me, constructively disturbing, were the number of individuals that didn't know much about these broader issues. When I did spend time with them, however, what came to roost was the kitchen table issues, the economy, inflation. Many people simply don't have pragmatically the time to track or be informed about a lot of these issues, as hard as that might be to believe, because they are that significant. However, the pace of life that people are living right now, it draws them away from the big pictures, and they're most impacted when they go to Aldi's and they compare the price of a basket full of food today versus a year ago. That comes home to roost. So I really do think, if I can use that phraseology, the silent majority is being impacted by the economy, by inflation. And that's the number one thing that's on their minds. These other issues, when you talk to them about that, they tend to agree with the concern that I've expressed to them as to what the heck is going on and who's in charge and how do we hold them accountable. But the inflation, kitchen table issues are really, in my mind, the thing that will draw most people's attention and is motivating them to get out and look for a change.
I'd second that opinion. Going door to door, you run into all these people who say, "Oh, I'm not political, could really care less."
Right.
But now they're saying, "This is wild. It has to be the people in power's fault. You're right. I'm not better than I was 4 years ago. Therefore, I'm going to go vote."
Right.
We're looking at the comparison of Carter and Biden. What other similarities do you see, not just in the timing and the atmosphere, but between their presidencies themselves?
Well, I'll label it as a personal opinion. Opinions are like belly buttons. Everybody's got one. So I don't claim that mine holds any water than anybody else's. But what immediately comes to mind is how our presidency is being viewed by the rest of the world. And one of the things that President Carter suffered from was, simply put, disrespect on a global basis, I believe. There were good things that he was involved in, and he spent a good portion of the rest of his life so far doing very positive and very meaningful things. However, in terms of causing other nations to second guess what they may or may not do on the world stage, President Carter was simply not effective in portraying strength. Clearly, President Biden has done President Carter a favor and moved President Carter out of the position of having been the worst president in our history. You only need to stop and think about Afghanistan and our departure from that situation. We had the opportunity to leave there from a position of strength. And by, I guess in this case, strength meaning the ability to cause those that would do us harm to second guess what they're going to do. I cannot think of a purposefully designed, more inept way of having left there, particularly when I've seen videos of now President Biden years ago literally telling an audience to be mindful of leaving there and leaving behind billions of dollars of arms. Billions is now in the hands of those that would do us harm. So I am very concerned about the young men and women that we're going to ask to put themselves in a position potentially of danger to protect us from the most ineptness I can possibly think of from our, quote, commander in chief.
Now, I hear the argument often made of Biden pulling out of Afghanistan, that show of weakness, that triggered a lot of what is going on now in Ukraine. Where do you think that argument has efficacy?
I don't know. I don't know that show of weakness would have really changed the plans of Russia to invade Ukraine. I think the situation in the United Nations right now is a little bit more complex than just it all hinging on the US's perceived strength of our president.
Right.
So I think that might be a little bit far-fetched, but it certainly has some holding.
Yeah, it's poor timing at the very least.
I think the case has been made that President Biden's almost immediate decision to shut down our own gas line in this country shortly after taking office sent a clear signal of impotence. and it afforded Russia the opportunity to double down and amplify their relative position now over the provision of gas supplies to all of Europe and to the rest of the world. That move alone, I to this day, outside of the climate change agenda, was and is disastrous. And it's set up the tumbler of events that we're now confronting in the Ukraine right now. If that had not happened, the world would be in a better position to withstand what's going on right now. And that's a brutal reality. But it is another example of ineptness at the commander-in-chief level.
Yeah, it's seen in all facets of what's going on. And back to the wrong direction poll, we've covered all these things. Is there anything else that you guys think of that really makes America feel like we're headed in the wrong direction? The only thing I think we haven't covered in that short bit that is really impactful is what's going on in our schools. And that's a national thing that is bringing up people who never would have been political, but now they're seeing what's being taught to their kids. They're saying, oh my gosh, I'm going to the polls.
Well, I think an important part that we have almost put by the wayside now with how much turmoil has been going on just with our presidency is the way that, the administration handled COVID. I think that is, in a lot of our minds, kind of gone by the wayside at this point.
Yeah.
But when you talk about schools, that's where it hit the hardest. And, not that long ago, we were holding rallies there and people were, I would say, not very happy with the state of the country then.
Yeah, it's long enough now that people have had some time to forget about it. But I hope and I pray that when somebody goes into the ballot and they're thinking about voting for somebody like J.B. Pritzker, they go in there and they think, wait, this is the guy that locked down our schools, locked down our restaurants, told me my job wasn't essential, made me wear a mask, did all these things. I hope that comes in, even if it's last minute for some of these people. But, it's only a hope that correlation will be made.
I find myself wearing two hats of sorts. One comes from the fact that I was privileged to serve 2 terms on a local school board here in West Central Illinois. So I have a sense as to what it means to be representing the interests of the local community, parents and children and whatnot. The second hat is as now a grandparent with grandchildren in the public school system. And having had the opportunity a year plus or so ago to give testimony, if you will, at several open school board meetings, as I look back on what I said at the time, I'm proud of the fact that, ironically, I didn't address specifically the COVID protocols. Rather, as I pointed out, you have to accurately define the problem that you're actually trying to address as a unit of local government, a school board. And I answered that question for them at the time. I offered that the real definition of the problem in my mind, and the real concern I had, was that you are potentially usurping the rights of individual parents. Government is making decisions via mandates that is otherwise the domain of private individuals, parents. And the generic concern that I had was, if you can do this, then what can't you do in the name of safety on behalf of people? You're suggesting that parents are worse suited to look out for the well-being of their children and or themselves than you are as a unit of government. And by definition, if you stand back and look at that, generically speaking, it is a formula for failure on a broad basis, locally, statewide, and nationally. And that is my, if I were a medical doctor, that's my prognosis of what's going on in our culture. It's suggesting that government at the local, state, or federal level is by definition better suited than individuals. And that is directly contrary to the founding principles of that country. And maybe, yes, I'm older. I put myself in the category of being an old fart. I didn't know the founding fathers. Personally, obviously, I'm not that old, but their principles still resonate. And that was my approach to chastising people that sit on local boards right now or in the future, I hope, this coming spring. People approach that responsibility understanding that they have limitations on their authority. And they need to respect that and respect the decision-making of individual parents. If parents decide to get the shots, that's their call to make. And the trade-off is then we all should be prepared to accept and deal with the consequences of our individual decisions. That was my concern then, and it is now.
Yeah, and let's hope that this coming spring, we're looking at a Governor Darren Bailey, a Attorney General Tom DeVore, and we don't have to fight this again on the local level. But if we fail on a statewide level, once again, it's going to be pass the buck to us, the local people, to go into our school boards and start to fight back against this stuff. So,
well, if I could just add quickly to that, I think we're all familiar with the CDC's recent advisory vote with respect to requiring COVID shots for public school attendance. And just one of the reasons that our vote for candidate Bailey is important right now, because there's several issues on the table right now that lead us down the same pathway. But it's clear who the next governor is will be making that decision at some point in time. And we know which way Governor Pritzker is going to go. We have 33 months worth of edicts that have been issued, 33 executive orders that have been issued.
consecutive, yeah.
Consecutive, and without the voice of the people being heard. So it's just one of the reasons why voting for candidate Bailey right now is extremely important.
And I hope the public sees it.
I would add, before we move on to that topic too, Matt, you mentioned earlier issues coming home to roost with the families at their kitchen table. And I think, very often we miss the national level things. We only catch mere glimpses of what's going on in the national level, especially anything that we take into our daily lives. But I think it happens on the state level more than we'd like to think. And with the whole issue in our school boards, I think that really, really became apparent to a lot of parents that their elected officials at the state level really had a lot more power on them than what they thought. We saw that with the budgets, with the sports, when they started to, the schools that decided to go against the mandates, that there was a lot of power that was, closer to them than they thought with, as far as the state, when they started going against the people in that situation. And it was super apparent with the sports and the budget cutting of those schools.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, parents are tired of fighting. They want it to be solved at the state level so that they don't have to fight the nonsense that's coming down.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go ahead and hop to another graph here. So Kari Lake and Katie Hobbs are running in Arizona. I don't know how familiar you guys are with the race, but this was one that when the primary ended, Kari Lake is a much more conservative candidate in the primary. Trump endorsed. She gets to the primary, and nobody's expecting her to even have a shot. And we are looking at her being up in the polls with Katie Hobbs trailing. What do you think this signifies on more of a statewide basis, that these, let's call them Trumpian candidates, these conservatives, these America First candidates are still polling ahead in the general election?
Well, I've watched it from a distance, obviously. I've spent time in Arizona. The board, you can't think about that race without first, in my mind, thinking about the border issue. She has made it very clear that on day one, she will be putting in motion efforts to secure the border. That should resonate with the rest of the country because, as I didn't invent the term, all of our states are border states now based on the behavior that's been taking place. You can't have 5 million people coming across the border and staying right there. They're being dispersed like seeds in the wind all across this nation. So every state has a dog in this fight. So that certainly resonates with me. The fact that President Trump she is but one candidate that he has put his support behind, that's kind of a bellwether to me. It's saying that a lot of people right now, and they may have been silent up till now, are monitoring and tracking a lot of those things. So crime is obviously a very big issue in Arizona, and it's directly related to what's happening at the border.
Now, I'm pulling this from my recall here, but to my recollection, she said that she's going to declare the border crisis an invasion, which will give her gubernatorial powers similar to an emergency mandate, and that she is going to take the federal resources that were left behind, the pieces of the border wall, and claim them as abandoned federal salvage, rewrite their constitution to allow them to do so, and then claim those pieces and continue to work on the border wall. if we are looking at, let's say, Lord forbid, there's a Democrat-led Senate and a Joe Biden, Joe Biden will be there, but that those two are still in power, what do you think the federal government will do in response to a potential Governor Kari Lake taking that much of an assertive action on the border?
It is concerning because one can only speculate that lawsuits would be filed from the federal level, which could bog efforts down through the legal system, obviously. The prospect of the federal government withholding funds for seemingly unrelated reasons or subjecting grant requests, for instance, for undue scrutiny, who knows? There's a multitude of things that the federal government could do, obviously. They would lay claim to the fact or perception that the federal government has the exclusive right under the Constitution to protect the border and therefore can intervene and pause what the state might do. So there could be some interesting entanglements there. Time will tell. But in this case, candidate Lake has made it clear what she will be doing. So it's not like, while the legislature itself hasn't yet voted on granting her legal authority to do things, she's made it clear, and one could argue, I think, effectively, that by virtue of the upcoming results of that election, the people have heard her and they will endorse those actions, meaning that she will have consensus from the people to do what she said she's going to do. And that gives us hope.
Which is the beauty of running on policy. And in her race especially, I mean, Katie Hobbs has barely anything on her website. She refused to debate. So it's really a contrast. You may not agree with everything that Kari Lake is putting forward, but at least you know what she is putting forward.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's reminiscent of, it's not the same at all, but President Trump, and maybe it's happened before, but when he announced and provided a list of who his Supreme Court candidates would be in the event there'd be openings during the campaign, early on, people knew and had the opportunity to at least take that into account when they went into the voting booth, what they were endorsing. So you make a great point that when you're running based on policy and that policy is distributed and known to people, that makes it more meaningful. It provides a jumpstart of consensus.
Anything to add, Joe?
Not here.
Do you think that it's more a reflection of people are just so sick of Democrats that they're willing to vote for Kari Lake? Or do you think that the America First, a little more extreme policy is what is popular and driving people to the polls? Or is it both?
Man, if I knew that answer, I could win a lot of elections for you.
Yeah, political consultant of the year.
What comes to my mind about the border issue is it draws attention in the big picture to the hypocrisy. And going back to the COVID and the mandates and whatnot, how can you on one hand not even have 5 million people come across your border as a result of absolute incompetence, because that's not what's going on. You can't be that incompetent, meaning you're endorsing this 5 million people to encroach our border without meaningful data being accumulated on these individuals with respect to their health concerns or whatnot. And on the other hand, hold the rule followers in the country to adhere to quote unquote mandates. It sets the table for dramatic hypocrisy, and it legitimately calls into question the quality and the meaning and the purpose of any and every other decision that is coming out of this administration.
Well, and I hate to apply motive and my perception of and understanding of their motive, but it sure seems, and I feel comfortable saying this because this isn't a news show, this is opinion here, that there is an agenda behind that, and it sure looks like, and the rhetoric often around it is that it is to dilute our electorate and bring in new people. If you're losing the will of the people, change up the composition of the people themselves.
Well, I won't give myself credit for this, but a long time ago, 10 to 15 years ago, it had occurred to me by instinct that, for instance, individuals that enjoy a Hispanic background in their lives, be it their culture or where they come from. Why, I don't know, but I've always had the perspective that they are inherently conservative, They are family oriented. The family unit is extremely important in the culture. And I had a predisposition to view those of a Hispanic background to be conservative. And I bring that forward to now the present. On one hand, we have, it appears, at least 5 million people recently that have crossed over our border without our permission. By the same token, I think the Democrats are being caught off guard right now because these individuals are not turning out to be bending at the knees, honoring Democrats for allowing them to do something illegally and therefore beholden to the Democrat Party. Rather, they're gravitating to their own personal roots and orientation to life. And we're finding that they're finding a home in the Republican Party. They're finding a home in policy that's consistent with their individual belief system. And in that regard, I choose to be hopeful about the future of this country. They're providing an influx of young men and women that honor the family unit as the building block, and they're taking responsibility for that and not allowing government to usurp that responsibility. It's further diversifying this country, and by so, we will be stronger for it.
Right.
How we're getting there is the issue. But my instincts are telling me that we're beginning to see evidence of the fact that these individuals are gravitating to and finding a home in the Republican Party.
I think that's a great point. You know, I think the problem of immigration isn't the people coming across, it's the fentanyl, it's the drugs, it's the ability for an evil person with the intent to do harm to come across. It's all the untraceable things. I mean, I would love to see more and more people come into the United States legally when we know who they are, because, I mean, we can't find help at work. We've got areas where there could be more people. There's available housing. I mean, America can handle it. We're a nation of immigrants. I think that point is always brought up by conservatives, but I think the left is just so quick to say racist. You know, it's that you don't like Latino people.
Right.
But I think more and more as, you know, the kind of the left's hand of race politics is shown and that we begin to understand it, that we can begin to message effectively and say, hey, no, we want to bring people in. We just have to do it right.
Correct.
I think an important aspect that was brought up that I really liked the way it was presented was you mentioned the hypocrisy of the idea of, you know, 5 million people rolling across the border. But when we look at, well, let's start it with Democrats have a very forward policy point on education. They want education for all, equality in their education, equality in housing, and equality in income, I'd say, are very big points of the Democratic Party. And so let's take a look at areas that, you know, are majority controlled by Democrats, where they have almost, you know, veto-less control. You look at California or Illinois, especially in Cook County. And then now let's identify the points where we have the highest income inequality, highest housing inequality, and highest education inequality. Well, it's right where these people with those platforms have the majority of the control. And you want to look at hypocrisy. Why is nothing changing there? It just blows my mind. California is the, you know, textbook example of all that. You know, you want housing inequality, and they've got the highest homeless.
Have you guys seen the
population of
Babylon Bees Californians move to Texas?
No.
Oh my gosh. Hard to describe. I wish I would have saved the clip to put on so you could play it on air, but they've been doing these bits where they've got this California couple that, you know, they're actors, but they've just moved to Texas, and they go out and they start volunteering for Beto. And they start going to people's doors and saying, hi, my name is something, I'm a she, her. And he goes, you know, and they play with all these little quirks, and, you know, and then they'll walk up to somebody's door and they've got a holster with a gun, and they freak out and they start running. And he's like, no, this is why the neighborhood's so safe.
Right.
You know, no. But it's just one of those funny things. Let's go ahead. Let's cover one more poll here. We'll head to a quick break, and then we're going to have on a guest afterwards. So not much to diagnose here, and we're on a much smaller screen than you guys are, so we're having a hard time seeing this. But in these polls, it shows Pritzker being up 16 and then Pritzker being up 9, but there's only 3 polls for Illinois that are covered on Real Clear Politics. And even from my discussions with people on the Bailey campaign or people within, different party positions, there are not many polls going on in Illinois on a statewide level. Whereas when you look at Kari Lake and Katie Hobbs, there are tons of different data points polling in those polls. But let's go ahead and bring in our next guest. Travis, can you hear us all right? Travis, can you hear us?
I can hear. I'm not sure what's going on with my camera.
Hey, no worries. We can do just audio if you want.
But I can hear.
So did you hear me covering how there's only 3 really big polls?
Well, I'd like to do.
Here, Travis, we'll bring you back in just a few moments after the commercial break while he figures out how he wants to set up. But this is one of those things where Illinois might be getting overlooked in this cycle in a way where we don't quite know where we're at in this race. So as we go on talking throughout the day, it's one of those interesting things. So what do you guys make of that? Why do you think Illinois is being overlooked this cycle where we're in play in New York, we're in play in Michigan?
Yeah, it is interesting. Even the national media will focus on California, New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and you rarely hear Illinois being discussed on the national level, which suggests they're presuming what the outcome is going to be. But I can only hope that maybe the silent majority is alive and well. I've heard the argument relatively recently that Republicans are instinctively reluctant to even express their opinion if they're being polled, and they're not, looking to involve themselves in the process at all. So I hope and pray that the real poll, meaning the election today, will be the one that actually counts. But I do think there is a probability that the results are going to be dramatically different than what the national media are suggesting. It's too meaningful to people right now. You're talking about hardcore issues that come home to Mama Bear and Papa Bear. And I do think that from Cairo up to Cook County, there's going to be a lot of people coming forward that haven't been heard up till now.
I was watching a professional pollster who was getting interviewed on, it was some podcast I was watching, and he said the middle working class doesn't take polls because while the pollsters are working and doing their calling, they're at work. They're not going to pick up the phone and do a poll. And he said, and those people happen to be conservatives. Now that's obviously a bias we have as conservatives, is that, well, we're the working ones, but that could have some efficacy too. So we're going to go ahead and take a quick break here. And when we come back, we're going to have on soon to be State Representative Travis Weaver.
One of the reasons it looks like the people who currently run the government are about to be repudiated in a historic way next Tuesday is that they have completely opened our southern border, over which more than 5 million foreign nationals have come in and broken our laws by doing it.
The Democrats own it. They own it, and they will pay for it on Election Day.
And the only way to fix Illinois is to fire J.B. Pritzker and get the problem out by the roots.
It should be pretty clear by now what this election is all about. Every one of their candidates is a radical.
I've got a new name for Chicago. I'm going to call it Pritzkerville, because every one of Governor Pritzker's extreme policies are destroying the city.
I know they want us to think it is a battle between left and right, but this is truly a battle between those who want to save America and those who want to destroy her. Who is ready to rise up and go out there and win this war to save America? Let me hear you.
So we are back on live, and Travis is still figuring out his connection, but we're going to go ahead and bring on State Senator Neil Anderson. Neil, can you hear us all right?
Yeah, I can hear you. How are you?
We're doing great. Thank you for coming on. So, Neil, what races are important locally? What issues do you think are going to drive people to the polls? And how do you think today is going to turn out for us here in Illinois?
Well, I tell you what, there's so many races that I've been helping with that are going to be really good races. I think down Metro East with Erica Harris, we have Sandy Hamilton in the Springfield area, Mike Tomes in my area, Desi Anderson right next to my district. there's just so many races and county board races and sheriff's races. I see you guys got a Moody for sheriff sign behind you. I tell you what, Pat Moody, I think, is going to surprise some people today. That is a race that everybody's overlooking. But tell you what, I went and voted this morning at 9 o'clock in my little town of Andalusia. I always vote the same time every election. I always vote at 9 o'clock every time. The turnout today is something I've never seen before. I think last election, that was a midterm, went in, I was the 73rd vote. Today, same time, I was 221. So turnout is unbelievably high, which is a very good sign. I think there's going to be a lot of surprises today.
So Neil, you are closer to the numbers than we are. Do we have a chance to get out of the super minority or even take the majority in the House or Senate?
Yeah, I don't know that we have a chance of getting out of the minority. That's the problem with the redrawing of the maps. I mean, the Democrats had carte blanche on drawing, and they know what they're doing when they draw those maps. But I do think there is a chance that we get out of the super minority in the House. I think we only need 3 or 4 seats in the House to get out of the super minority. And in the Senate, we need 6. I would not be surprised today if we pick up 6 Senate seats.
Great. So on a statewide level, we were just talking about before you came on how there's not much polling going on in Illinois for the governor's race. You know, if you look at New York, if you look at Michigan, if you look at Arizona on the Real Clear Politics polls, there's numerous polls, but we're only seeing 3 in Illinois. Why do you think that is, and how close do you think the polls really are?
Well, you broke up a little bit there, but I think I got the gist of it. So I tell people all the time, never look at poll numbers. I mean, poll numbers really are useless. What you need to look at, though, is the trend. If somebody is down 10 points 2 months before the election, and then they poll a month before the election, and they're 5 points down, that's showing a trend. And that's about the only thing, in my opinion, that polls are good for. And I tell you what, if I'm a Democrat going into today and I'm 1 or 2 points down in the polls, and last month I was 10 points up, or rather today I'm 2 points up and last month I was 10 points up, I'm not very confident today. I tell you that right now. But that's what we're seeing nationwide. I follow that projects538.com, that Nate Silver site, and if you look at those trends across the nation, everything is trending our way, and it seems like the big push has been here in the last 3 weeks. So I think one of the biggest surprises that we're going to see tonight is Lee Zeldin in New York. I think Lee Zeldin is going to win that governor's race, and nobody saw that coming.
Yeah, it's a definite upset. I think the last time we had a Republican there was 30 years ago? Was it that long ago?
Yeah.
So what's your prediction? Just rapid fire. Blake Masters, win or lose?
Win.
Dr. Oz, win or lose?
Win.
All right. Tudor Dixon in Michigan, win or lose?
I think that's a loss.
Ooh, and Darren Bailey here in Illinois, win or lose?
I think
but
at 1 point.
You said sorry, I was talking over you. What was that?
Sorry, you broke up there.
I was talking over you. Bailey or Pritzker, what's your prediction? Oh, yeah.
I believe he said he thinks Bailey's going to win by 1 point.
Hey, I'll take it. Neil, we're starting to lose connection with you, and I appreciate you coming on. So I'm going to go ahead and pull you off the live stream. But thank you for coming on. Best of luck this year in session. You've done a great job, and we continue to look forward to what you're going to do in the Senate.
Thank you, Neil.
Great guy, Neil Anderson. You gotta love it. I think it's interesting that he puts it that close between Bailey and Pritzker. I think it says something. Let's go ahead and hop right into our next guest, who's been patiently waiting that we push the back of the line. Soon to be State Representative Travis Weaver. Travis, can you hear us all right? Oh shoot, I think you're on mute, Travis, but we'll
it might be a connection issue too, Matt.
What's that?
Might be a connection issue with
Could be
Travis.
connection also. We're not picking up any audio though, so I think it's well, no worries. Let's head to a quick break. I'll give Travis a call on the break and we'll be right back, folks.
One of the reasons it looks like the people who currently run the government are about to be repudiated in a historic way next Tuesday is that they have completely opened our southern border, over which more than 5 million foreign nationals have come in and broken our laws by doing it.
The Democrats own it. They own it, and they will pay for it on Election Day.
And the only way to fix Illinois is to fire J.B. Pritzker and get the problem out by the roots.
It should be pretty clear by now what this election is all about. Every one of their candidates is a radical.
I've got a new name for Chicago. I'm going to call it Pritzkerville, because every one of Governor Pritzker's extreme policies are destroying the city.
I know they want us to think it is a battle between left and right, but this is truly a battle between those who want to save America and those who want to destroy her. Who is ready to rise up and go out there and win this war to save America? Let me hear you.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. We just had Neil Anderson on, and we were talking about that, and he really thinks that the Bailey Pritzker race is going to be much closer. One thing that I did think was interesting is that he put, who was it that lost? Dixon in Michigan?
Right.
Even though recently in the polls, she has been pulling ahead. It always seems to me that Michigan is more and more of a conservative state, potentially due to the decline of Detroit's population and just the shifting demographics there. What do you think is going to happen in that race, Tom?
Well, I really don't have a lot to go on. I haven't followed the Michigan race much other than the gubernatorial race. And there is, I think it's an amendment, proposed amendment relative to abortion in that state that's driving a lot of the voting that I think is going on. What comes to mind is, you know, when I think of Michigan, it's hard for me to not think of universities. And I think of universities, and I think if there's any truth in the perception, at least, if not the reality, that over time, universities are giving birth to a different cultural approach to a lot of issues. So, and lastly, something that also perhaps even more poignantly relates to Illinois, which is the hemorrhage of population in Illinois and or Michigan over the last 3 to 5 years. If you stand back from that and look at the profile of people that have left the state, how would they have voted had they still been here? And unfortunately, I sincerely believe the majority of them, enough to swing any particular election, would be more in the Republican wing. The irony, it's working against us in that regard, and that's certainly true here in Illinois, meaning that Governor Bailey has a tougher road to hoe than even Governor Rauner did.
Interesting. Well, let's go ahead and try again to bring on Mr. Travis Weaver. Travis, can you hear us all right this time? Oh, shoot. Something is going on Travis's end. We still can't get him. Actually, Travis, I think we're getting a little bit of audio. Can you hear us?
How about now?
Yeah, we're getting you, Travis. So for those who don't know, Travis is over in the Peoria area. He won a very tough primary and is now set to be a state representative. He is unopposed. Travis, tell us about the races that are going on in your area. I know Ben Watson a race over there, and I know there's some state senate races. What are you watching today on more of a local level as the polls close?
I'm really keyed in on, first of all, you guys can hear me okay, right? It says I'm muted, but I think it might be wrong. Good deal. I'm really watching some county board races. There's representing my district. Three of them are currently held by Democrat County and Fulton County. And I think we have a clear line of site to make all 3 of the Republican counties, which would make all 6 of my counties Republican. Here in Peoria is where there's 11 Democrats, 7 Republicans. Somebody told me last night that it's been Democrat majority. Don't fact check me on that, but for as long as I can remember, it's been Democrat majority. Tonight, at least a 9-9 tie. We could get up 10-8. I think we've even got line of sight our way. The next big one is over in Knox County. That's been a Democrat majority, but Jared Hawkinson, who's the county, to flip one of the Democrat members to vote for him. So it's a Democrat majority with the Republican chair tonight, though that will go definitely Republican majority, likely 9, with even a possibility of 10 R's and 5 D's. And then I think the tricky one is going to be, that's a county that's been blue for a long time, but it's blue collar blue. In other words, they're Republicans. They just don't know it yet. So it would be 2. I think they've got really strong candidates that are running down there. So I'm really excited to see how those.
Yeah, what a blessing it would be to have all county Republican in your district, all counties be Republican in your district. So Travis, you are unopposed and soon you'll be a state representative. What is the first thing that you want to focus on once you are sitting in the state house representing the great people of your district?
Well, I'll give you 2. It's our state's finances, and our finances. My background is spent 7 years at Caterpillar. I've funded pensions. I've issued worth of debt. I've managed relationship with the credit rating agencies. Worst financial position in the country, 50th out of 50 in most key metrics. Has unfunded pension liability. I mean, all that's. The other key one is education. It's where my passion lies. I substitute teach. I tutor GEDs. You know, we've got to get back to a situation where we're giving kids the tools that they need to starts with reading, because reading is the tool by which you learn. Just this past month, juniors all across the United States reported their worst in 30 years. That's a problem. Right here in Illinois, kids can read at grade level. 18 out of every 100 Black kids can read at grade level. 100 Hispanic kids can read at grade level. That's a huge problem. And you hear people say COVID. That's not true. That's because of leadership. COVID is a circumstance. The country navigated their way through it. We weren't able to do that here in Illinois, and we got to hold our governor accountable.
I think you're absolutely right. Travis, thank you so much for coming on. Before we move on to the next guest, is there anything you'd like to share? How can we follow you on social media to see your journey as you go in to fight the machine?
Well, I'll tell you, one last thing I would share is there's one that I've really got my eye on tonight that I think will be interesting. It's Virginia's 7th congressional district. One, because it's going to be in the first wave of polls that close. So I think it'll be a good barometer who's going to go. This is a district that in 2020, Biden won by 52% of the vote. Glenn Youngkin then, when it was his turn, took 52% his way. District. It's got a Democrat incumbent named Abigail Spanberger, the 18th. So this would be her 3rd term. And Yesli Vega is her Republican challenge. She's really tough on crime. She gives incredibly emotional speeches. So I think that's going to go. And if you want to follow me, my campaign Instagram is on Facebook as well.
Go ahead and say that one more time, Travis. You cut out when you were telling us what the handle is on Instagram.
At Vote Weaver.
Vote Weaver. Hey, thank you so much for coming on, Travis. I'm really excited to see what you do. I'm glad we have somebody representing the under 24 category. No, I'm just kidding, Travis.
Hey, Matt.
But he looks it.
I just like to dovetail very quickly on,
go ahead.
on 2 of the points that Matt made. Relative to pensions, The organization known as Open the Books, and you're probably familiar with that. I always mispronounce his name, Andrew Andrzejewski, I think it is, just reported that in Illinois alone, there are in excess of 139,000 public pensioners or current employees that are making over $100,000 a year. I am a pensioner here in Illinois and a former business officer, so I relate very intimately to what you're talking about, your background, and what you hope to do in that arena. It is extremely important because it's simply not sustainable. Secondly, to your earlier point, it ties in with what Josiah was making a point on earlier. When we look at communities such as Chicago, Baltimore, you name the city that is dominated by the Democrat Party, in the city of Chicago, it's only 11% of Black children that are reading at grade level. It's only 18% of Hispanics that are reading at grade level. So we have, as the common vernacular goes, we have a structural problem in the pipeline of young men and women coming through the education system that will bear fruit down the road. And that is disastrous for this country.
Yeah, it's a structural problem, and I'll tell you the answer is not to throw in Chicago. We look at $29,000 per pupil is what the cost is. 50, which is downtown Peoria, it's in the teens of thousands. You look at school 10-15% capacity, so you got a school that's supposed to hold 1,000 kids. There's only 150. The union won't let you. And now once we get Amendment 1, if that thing passes, there's no around that problem. So you got to ask yourself, is it about kids and teachers, or is it not? It's the latter.
Well put.
Well, hey, profound as always. Thank you, Travis, for coming on. Hopefully we'll be able to catch you again before the end of the day. God bless you, and looking forward again to seeing what you're going to do while in office.
See you guys. Take care. Be good.
So we are going to go ahead and take a quick break here. I've got pulled up a video of Kari Lake because a lot of people on our viewership are not going to know who she is or what she's all about. So I'm going to go ahead and roll a quick speech of hers that she gave the other night that was covered by Forbes. And I don't know how long we're going to run it for. We're going to take a bathroom break and shuffle around the office here. But she does get called out by Obama, and she references that and responds to it. So here is Kari Lake.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Guys, I love you. Who said that? I love all of you. Guys, look around. I mean, just look around. Do you see this standing room only? Something is happening in Arizona. Oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. This guy's been with me the whole time. Every single rally, I love it. I call him the Silver Fox. Oh man. Are we, okay, I'm doing the math here. Are we 3 days or 4 days from election? 4, but we're kind of almost 3, right? 3.5 days. Whatever it is, we're gonna win big. Do you feel it? And we have such an amazing movement. Blake, Blake is, I don't want to say like a son because I'm not that old, but we've become really good friends. And, you know, Mark and Abe, we are in this together. We are in this to save Arizona. And I'm so excited about it. And I see Roxana here. You know, Roxana is a Republican former police officer running in Tempe and South Scottsdale. She's awesome. She's running against... and it's normally a Democrat district, but the Democrats don't show up for work. Shocking, I know. The guy she's running against showed up like how many days? 6 days out of a gazillion days. And he already vowed if you reelect him, he's going to not show up this session. And he's actually a candidate. I mean, that should be enough to knock him out. So they're going to vote for Roxana, the great Republican. You know somebody. And we've got Wendy Rogers down here. Stand up, Wendy. I love this woman. Wendy, come up here. I got to have Wendy come up. Wendy Rogers is a grandma who loves her grandbabies. And she fights for Arizona. And I'll tell you what, because she fights for Arizona, you know how many text messages I got last session? You need to separate and back away from Wendy Rogers. I said, hell no. She fights for Arizona like no one I've ever seen. Just like they say, back away from President Trump. I will never back away from fighters who love this state. You want to say a few words, Wendy? Put you on the spot.
Well, it was Carrie who would text me also and back me up. And it wasn't her fight, but she was there for me. And that would be at like 11:15 at night. And she would text me and say, I'm behind you. Never give up. You're over the target. Let's win this.
And Wendy's going to win so big. She's going to win so big. She said, Carrie, I don't need to, I already have won. And so I'm going to work for you. And she's been in front row of every one of these rallies we've done. I had to call her up because I just want you to know, when they were attacking Wendy Rogers, the person who was standing up the most for Arizona, and they were trying to get me to back away from her, I said, that's not who I am. I don't back away from the people. If I back away from Wendy, then that means I'd back away from you. And I will never back away from the good people of Arizona. I will fight for you. So, I love you too. We just came from the border today. We were in Cochise County, and boy, they have it tough down there. The border is so complex here in Arizona. You can't just compare us to any other border. We've got the Yuma sector, we have the Tucson sector, we have what's happening on the Indian reservations. We have a situation where the what they're called gotaways are coming across. We've got 5 million people or more, I believe, who've come across since Joe Biden took office. Can you believe in the first 10 minutes of his administration, his priority was to strip away an incredible border policy that President Trump had put in place? In the first 10 minutes. I mean, you'd think you'd want to settle into the White House. No, he said, we've got to make that border wide open and let everybody come across. And he did that in 10 minutes' time. We've had more than 5 million people. We've had fentanyl pour across at levels that would just blow your mind. We've finished the wall. That's right, we're going to. I was actually down there today, and there's about a block, maybe a half a mile of fencing and the materials that are for the wall. Guess who paid for those? We did. Guess who's going to take them back and use them? We are. And we're going to do that right away. Wendy and the legislature is going to help us redefine that as abandoned federal property. We're taking it back. We're going to finish President Trump's wall. Yes, we are. And we're down there. We got to have a united Republican force. Somebody said it's so rare to see, you know, the AG, the Senate candidate, the governor candidate, the Secretary of State, all of you working together. Usually politicians are pretty selfish and greedy. Not the Republicans. We are working together as a team. And we're going to work for you. So we were down there today, and I know that as bad as the border is, it's in a really bad place right now. I have so much hope because I know we're going to win, and I know that the Republicans are willing to put the hours in, show up at work, and do the job. And we're going to do that and secure that border. And we're ready for the fight. But so every day's 521 days on the campaign trail. Not that I'm counting, but my staff told me it was that long. It actually feels like one very long day, to be honest. And you know, we've had so many great experiences. I actually stood up here very early on for Arrowhead women's Republican group. You remember that? You probably lined it up really early on when I first announced. And so I feel like we've been through a million battles since then. But yesterday was really one of those, kind of a pinch me day. Guess who came out and attacked me? Barack Obama. Exactly. He was talking about me, and it was so funny. I'm living rent-free in Barack Obama's mind, which is great. And I didn't actually listen to his speech until today. I was on Fox and they were playing some of it, and I'm like, wow, I'm really living rent-free. He went on and on. And they have nothing to attack us on. Okay, they attacked Trump for his tweets. I'll take a mean tweet any day. How about you? Well, they can't attack me. My tweets aren't mean. They're funny, but they're not mean. They attacked him, orange man bad. I'm not orange, and neither is he, by the way. Unless the cameras try to mess with the color. So they can't attack me on that. They can't attack me for, not being able to articulate things. I've got a little experience in that. We have great policies, so they can't attack us on that. So you know what he attacked me on? The fact that I worked on TV. He attacked me for being articulate, and he attacked me for having good lighting in my home studio. That's all they've got. I was like, oh, this is so classic. Their attack on me is that I have good lighting. This is how desperate they are. So I laughed when Obama was attacking me. I laughed when Liz Cheney came in and attacked me. She spent $500,000 running attack ads on us, and we made $750,000 when she started attacking us. And then Katie Hobbs invites the worst of the worst. I would die of shame if this man came anywhere near me. Eric Holder. This was the guy that ran the gun running scheme that ended in the death of one of our brave Border Patrol agents, Brian Terry. She's actually arm in arm with this guy, and she's thinking that's a good thing. That's somebody who's out of touch, truly. I mean, this woman doesn't know what she's thinking, but one thing did scare me. Yesterday, I heard Hillary Clinton talking about me. You might be right on that. Let's see what we can do. Let's see what we can do. You know what? The fake news is going to run with it. I don't even care what they say. But so I'm fearless. I really am. I mean, once you walk through fear and you come out on the other side and are fearless, you really don't care about all these people. But I will tell you, there was a little tinge of fear when Hillary Clinton started talking about me. I went on Fox, I said, I just want everyone to know I'm in perfect health. We've recently had our car serviced and the brakes are in perfect working condition. And I am not suicidal. Let the record be shown. Hillary and Bill, just stay away from Arizona, okay? So I'm joking now. We're a few days away. I'm a little stir crazy from all the craziness that's been going on. But I think you all know where we stand, where we Republicans stand. We want common sense solutions, and we need them. We have a wide open border. I'm the first candidate in the governor's race to start talking about that. When I got into this, there were a few people who were in politics who said, just don't talk about the border. Don't talk about Trump. Don't talk about COVID. Don't mention the vaccines. And I'm like, that's everything we care about. Get away from me. We're going to talk about what people care about. We're going to secure the border. Starting on day one. We have to. We're going to stop the flow of fentanyl. We are going to fully fund our police. Restore law and order. And you see these amazing, beautiful, precious babies over here? We're doing it for these guys. We are here, all of us in this room. I want you precious kids to know, each and every one of these adults you see here, all of us old people, we are here for you guys. Because we love you guys. How many mama bears, papa bears, grandma bears, and grandpa bears are in this room? Are you voting on Tuesday like your grandkids and your babies depend on it? What they're doing to our kids is what I think got a lot of moms and dads involved. They just told me the other day when we were looking at our numbers, they said, guess what? The suburban moms, the mama bears are moving Republicans so fast. The Democrats' heads are spinning. And it's because the left did the stupidest thing in the world. I mean, you'd have to understand nature. You don't get between a mama bear and her baby cub. It's the most dangerous place in the world. And when you do that, we're going to rip you to shreds. Rip you to shreds. So we found out, and people like Wendy know this, she worked with Katie Hobbs when Katie was in the legislature. Katie Hobbs voted against the border wall. She voted against the virtual border wall. She voted against funding the border strike force to save us from border crimes. Twice she voted against that. At the same time, she put her name on legislation, sponsoring legislation to introduce sex education starting in kindergarten. I can't even think, I don't even think Democrats are for that, right? That's sick. I know, call it what you want. If he said she's a pervert, maybe, I don't know. That's degenerate. That's a degenerate. And I'm going to tell you this. I don't have a 5-year-old anymore, but our precious kids, if any adult wants to talk to these precious children, are you 5? This little precious guy, he said, stand up, sweetie. Did you see how precious this guy is, guys? He's 5 years old. He's probably 6. And I don't want to get graphic here, but you know what I'm talking about. Anybody who's an adult who wants to talk to these precious kids about that should be nowhere near a school. And that's what Katie Hobbs wants. And I couldn't figure it out. I thought, why? And why is she supporting on her website? I don't even know what they call it. They've got some fancy gender affirmation surgery for our children. She supports that. And I thought, why would she do that? She's a mother. Her husband, turns out, we find out yesterday, is a child psychiatrist who specializes in transitioning our children. She's making money off of it. It's disgusting. Listen, I have a compassionate heart, and if someone's dealing with that issue, I have compassion. But keep it out of our kids' schools. Keep it out of our kids' minds. Don't brainwash our children, and we're going to change things up. If it's okay with you, we're not going to teach that garbage in school. Are you okay with that? If it's okay with you, we're going to get back to some of the basics, reading, writing, arithmetic. Is that okay? I'm a product of public school. My father was a public school teacher. He was a football coach. He taught history and government and the Constitution, which we need to teach a little more of lately. And God rest his soul, I think he would be pretty shocked at what's happening in America. But we have a real opportunity on Tuesday to turn this whole thing around. We took a wrong turn a long time ago, and we need to get back on path and get going in the right direction. And I have so much confidence and faith because I'm seeing a lot of people out on these rallies we're doing. We do sometimes 2 and 3 a day. And I ask people, go back 4 years ago. Would you have found yourself in the middle of the week, although we're on Friday now? We have the same social life now. Friday nights, we're rallying. But, you know, we have people who show up on a Tuesday night at 6 p.m. And I say, how many of you 3 or 4 years ago would have found yourself coming to listen to politicians? Raise your hand if you would have. There's a few of you. There's a few. Wendy, you probably would have. No, Wendy wouldn't have either. There's a few of you. Look at this crowd, fake news. 3 or 4 years ago, none of these people were in it. This is how awake America is right now. Wide awake. And so we're ready for a change. We're ready to get back to some of the basics. We're ready to get back to the America that we know. And we want to make sure that these precious babies over here have the freedoms we had, the liberties we have, the rights we had, and the America that we had, and we're bringing it back. Is anybody ready for that? I am. I just love this crowd so much because I see Arizona. I see people who've been here forever. We've got some probably third and fourth, maybe fifth generation Arizonans who probably have some escapees from California here. Got a few. Someone went like this. The blue states are escaping. I think there's a whole new industry, Wendy, that we can capitalize on. It's called blue state ignorance. And as the blue states push people away, drive people away, they're searching for a common sense state, and they're coming to Arizona. And we can actually capitalize on the businesses that want to flee these states. But I have a question for you. How do you get those businesses? You got to go talk to them. And if you've got an opponent, my opponent won't even stand on a stage with me and debate. She's a coward, and I think she's insecure because she can't communicate. She will not debate. She would not debate me. And that, it's not, maybe she's afraid. It's not about me. That to me, I don't care if she disrespects me. It really doesn't bother me. I do care that she's disrespecting you and the people of Arizona. A debate is a job interview. And if you don't show up for the job interview, you don't get the job, right? And so, can you imagine, we're trying to bring some companies who want to escape, all these states over. And she, when she was thrown a softball question at a forum that she finally showed up for, by the way, but she put all sorts of restrictions. She said if Kari Lake's going to be in the building, she has to park a block away. This is true. She has to enter through a different door. We have to put drapes up in the hallway so I can't even catch her glimpse. I thought, am I that scary? So she shows up for the forum, and they throw her softball questions. They asked me the tough questions. They throw her softball questions. One of them was, name one good thing about the Latino community. Latinos for Lake, right. Can you imagine? Wendy's never been asked a softball question. Can you imagine being asked, just name one good thing about the Latino community? And she sat there for a minute and a half. Un poquito. She said that. Which means a little, just a bit. And it was so embarrassing. And my husband is Latino. My children are Latino. They were horrified. They said, is that the best she can do? Honestly, Mom. Honestly, Mom. So can you imagine someone who can't even handle a softball question going to bat for Arizona, trying to bring businesses here? Having to go up against great governors like Ron DeSantis and Kristi Noem and Glenn Youngkin? We're going to get our clocks cleaned with someone like that. Not to mention that she has been twice convicted as a racist. I don't know if you know that because the fake news won't report it. Twice convicted racist, costing Arizona nearly $3 million because she paid a woman of color, a single mom, $30,000 less than the men in the office doing the same job. And the woman found out about it and said, wait a minute, why are you paying me less? And Katie Hobbs, rather than saying, let's remedy this right away, she fired her. And she lost 2 court cases. When she lost, that means we have to pay for her racism. And we're paying nearly $3 million. And I'm only telling you that, not because I want to talk about Katie Hobbs, I don't, but the fake news media won't cover that. People need to know, you're right. I saw her with a group of African Americans, and I thought, they don't know. And here we have Barack Obama showing up, ignoring her racism, trying to convince people to vote for a twice convicted racist. It's really despicable. We're not going backwards. Arizona loves everyone, and we're not going to discriminate in Arizona. We're not discriminating in Arizona. We're not discriminating based on your skin color. We're not teaching our children to be racist in school. We don't care what your background is. We don't care what zip code you grew up in. If you love freedom, if you want to work hard and achieve the American dream, we want you to have it here in Arizona. Yeah, thank you. So I want to talk about a couple more policies real quick, because these are policies that I think, I know things are good up here in Arrowhead, but we've noticed in some parts of town the homeless population is growing. Have you seen it? Is it happening up here in Arrowhead? We're turning into California, this guy says. We're not going to turn into California. We're going to stop that. And this is why I came up with a policy to combat chronic street homelessness. We got to do it. We need to get people help, and we will provide help, drug treatment, mental health help. But we're no longer going to allow people to live in a tent on the street using drugs. It's not compassionate. That's not compassion, guys. The policies we have in place, many of these policies put in place by leftists, have been enabling people to continue to fester, use drugs, and fall further into despair. We're stopping those, and we're going to start lifting people up and getting them help. And we're going to start showing some compassion for the hardworking, tax-paying people who want their streets and parks back.